Gas or electric dryers? Which is better? Well, let's tear these apart and find out. Hello everyone, Blake with Boulevard Home. Today we're in a different spot. This is in our distribution center. We keep all of our inventory, and also we have a repair shop, so anything that comes back from a consumer or something that's possibly damaged when it comes to the shipment, we can fix it before we send it out. So today we brought you in the shop because we're going to talk about dryers. Everybody wonders about dryers and different appliances and how they work and the differences between dryers. So today we're going to show you a couple different dryers. We got a Hot Point here and a GE sitting right behind me. This one's an electric dryer, this one's a gas dryer. So we're going to tear apart and show you all the working parts and let you know how they all work and what makes one dryer better than the other. We've got the control panel taken off here. Basically, what these boards do is they tell the main board, which actually sits right here, what to do in the dryer. So from that point, when you select your different cycles on this, it tells all the information to this board right here, and this board is what does all the work. This board right here will tell the motor to turn on. In this case, because this is a gas dryer, it will tell the gas components to come on. And then also, while we're at this point too, right here on the very back, for those that have a steam valve or a steam function, that is the valve that allows the cold water to come in for your steaming action for your dryer. Don't try this at home. It's not very easy. Now we have this dryer all tore apart. Now let's talk to you about all the different components in there and all the components that are behind. First of all, we have the drum that has been taken out, and that's where your clothes tumble. On this, we have this nice belt that makes it go around. You know, you're gonna say, gosh, this belt's not very big. It's not. I will agree with you. It is small, but this does a great job. I've been using belts like this for 30 years. These hardly ever break. They basically, the reason they break is either a malfunction with the dryer that caused them to break, or just you've had them for 30 years. But very rarely do we have to replace these belts. So even though they are tiny, they are mighty. Typically a belt like this, if it does break, you know, the belt itself is about $30 to $40 for a belt, typically. They may be a little bit cheaper than that, but that's generally the going price for a belt. So now you look at this dryer. Boy, there's not much there, is there? You know, I got this big drum and nothing inside. Well, let's point out all the positives and what's inside this to say this is a better dryer of another dryer. Okay, as you notice on the back of this, you have these round little wheels right here. These are called supports. Those wheels right there are what the drum rides on. Now you have a set on the front and also on the back on this unit. Not all units use supports. Some use bearings. And what a bearing is, and that we'll show you that too on the electric dryer, because the electric dryer has the bearing and you'll be able to see the differences. And you say, why this one is better than that one? Even though these are the same company, this one's a GE, this one's a Hot Point, they are the same family. What I mean by the same family is GE, Cafe, Profile, and Hot Point are all the same manufacturer. A Hot Point dryer is not going to be as expensive as, say, a GE dryer is. So we'll show you the differences a little bit later on, and you'll be able to see why rollers are better. The parts that we're going to talk about right now are just unique for a gas dryer. No electric dryer will ever have this. This is all stuff that gas dryers have. Pretty much every gas dryer has a version of these parts. They may look differently, but they serve the same purpose. So on a gas dryer, in this case, this is what's called the gas burner. This is where the flame comes from, and the flame is inside this burner box here, and that's where it gets its heat from. This right here is your gas valve. This is what opens up. You have a primary and a secondary valve. So when you turn your dryer on, you hear the clicking going on. That's what you're hearing. You hear this clicking underneath there, and then you hear the flame come on. When it starts to run, it opens up the first valve. Once the igniter, which is down inside there, the igniter is what gets hot, and when it gets hot, it opens up the secondary valve and allows the gas to go across the burner, and then it ignites the flame, and that's where you get your temperature from. On the very bottom down in here, it's kind of hard to see, but it's way down here at the very bottom, you have what's called a flame sensor. That sensor down there is what determines that the flame is actually on and burning. So if there's no flame there, it will turn the gas off to it, and so there is no gas just flowing freely into the home. These two devices right here that sit on top of the burner box, these are what called thermal cutouts. If the burner box gets too hot, those cut off the flame to the unit, or it will stop the dryer from running. One of those two things. So that's controlled by these devices right here. And that's just that's a safety backup so it doesn't overheat and your house catches on fire because it's getting too hot. Because generally the air should be being pulled through the burner box here, in through your dryer here, and out to the outside of your home. And I'll show you more of that in just a second. Now on the back side here, this device right here, that is what is called a thermistor. Basically you have backups to backups to backups here. Because what it does is it cycles on this one here, it cycles on the thermistor, that's where it shuts off. If that fails, then it will start cycling on this thermostat because the heat gets it, the mechanically will get hot enough, it shuts the flame off. It'll cycle on this one. If this fails, they'll start cycling on this one. What I mean by cycling is when it reaches temperature, the unit shuts off, cools down, and then restarts back up and peaks back up to temperature and cycles in that range. If that one fails, then you have the thermal cutoff that will shut off the dryer. So as you can see with all these different safety components that you can see in this dryer, and every dryer has, they are really safe in the home. Very few times that a dryer will actually cause damage to the home. And I'm not saying it's not possible, because it is. But the engineers have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to make all these safe with all these different devices to prevent a temperature overrun or something that's going to damage your home. Last but not least, inside the dryer you have the motor itself. You have what's called the blower wheel. This is what moves the air through the dryer to the outside. It pulls the air from your burner box here through the dryer, and it pulls it through the lid filter to the blower, and then from here it blows it to the outside of the home. This motor has two pulleys on it. One of them is attached to this. On the other side of it is where our belt attaches, and that's what makes the drum go around. And this little device, this is the last device in that, that's what's called an idler pulley. It is spring loaded. The purpose of that is to keep tension on the belt, so as your clothes are rotating and they get to the top, so it picks up this heavy wet clothes and they drop, well, the drum is going to pick up speed a little bit. It allows the drum to keep running without the belt popping off the motor. This is basically a gas dryer. So now we're going to go over to the electric dryer. We're going to take that apart. We're going to leave them both apart, and then we'll point out the differences between them. You're going to find a lot of common things, and you're also going to find some different things. So we're going to take this apart now, and we'll go from here. And on a side note, GE, I don't know why you don't use the same screws for everything. I've already had to change my bits 3 times now, and I've only taken a few things apart. Okay, now we have this one tore apart. This one up inside this control panel up inside of here, we've got old mechanical timers that have been around forever and a day. As long as dryers have been made, they've had mechanical timers, and that's to tell the dryer to do different things. With the GE ones, we've got an electronic control board. These we have a mechanical timer. Which one's better? Well, depends if you're old like me or not. You know, if you're old like me, you like mechanical timers because they're pretty tried and true. Most everything has gone to integrated circuits as far as control boards and stuff, because it's easy for the manufacturer to build, and they can also build the design features they want into that board. And overall it's cheaper because there's a lot more labor that's involved with putting a mechanical timer together. Which one's more reliable? I would say overall the mechanical timers are more reliable. That's just my personal opinion. Now again, I don't have the facts to back it up. My personal opinion is these are more reliable. The electronics, they're great, they're fantastic. There's so many more things that they can do for you. But the electronic boards have other issues where they're more susceptible to power surges, power sags, stuff that can affect the electronic boards that timers like this usually don't have, are affected by. Just the little components failing on these boards. You have a little diode on this board will fail, and it takes that board out, and they're teeny tiny. Well, though that little device, if it takes it out, well, you know, you're done for. And be willing to shell out a whole bunch of money for that new board to get your dryer back and running. So which one's better of the two? I would lean to mechanical timer, but when you have your higher end stuff, it's going to be electronics. It's just the way it is. Again, in my hand, as I'm waving it around, in my hand, this is the belt. It's very similar to the one for the gas dryer. Same type of ribs, same size, maybe a little bit different length, but it's exactly the same. You know, so every dryer has a similar belt, similar size that you'd ever tear apart. Now, this electric dryer is quite a bit different than the gas dryer, as you can see. On this, our heating element is this big round thing right here, and that is our heating element for this. Instead of having our gas burner, we've got a big heating element. On the heating element itself, you have similar things as a gas dryer. Over here, you have what's called high limit thermostat. So what will happen is that will shut the dryer off or shut the element off if it gets too hot. It mechanically opens and closes just like the one on the gas dryer. You also have a thermal cutoff, which is right here. So if that one fails and the element gets even hotter, then that doesn't shut it off. This will shut off and shut the unit off from heating any further. So you won't have any fire or anything in your home or any damage to the appliance itself. The rest of it, you look, it's pretty blank, pretty open. We have a motor, we have our idler pulley, we have our blower wheel. And then right down here, we have a mechanical thermostat right here. And that's what determines the cycling of the dryer. So that's when it shuts off when it reaches temperature, and it turns it back on when it cools down though. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Now, a couple of key differences between these two. One is the riding system that the drum rides on. As you look at the gas dryer, remember they had those nice roller supports. This does not. This uses a bearing system. Now, a bearing system is right back here. You have this nice bearing and that hole right there. So you have the two pieces of the bearing go together, and that's what the back of it rides on. As you can see, it doesn't ride on wheels. There's no wheels down here for it to ride on. Also, on the very front of this, instead of having wheels on the front to support the front of the drum, you have what's called glides. These nice little colored pieces of plastic. Now, these are made of different types of nylons and different materials, and that's what the front of the dryer rides on. Now, when it rides on these glides, basically the whole support of the drum is being held by the top right here. So with having that being held by the top here, over time, this type of system is going to fail a lot faster than the wheels are. And also, these don't hold the weight of a support wheel. So, are there differences? Yeah. It's a dryer, it's an electric dryer. Now, if this was a gas dryer, this thing, you would have the same components right here from the gas dryer. You'd have your burner box and everything be located right here. The back of this would be a little bit differently, but would you have the wheels? No. This is a Hot Point, this is a GE. I can tell you right now, just longevity of the product, the GE is gonna hold up much longer than this will, strictly based on the type of support and structure that it has in it. You're gonna have less maintenance costs because we don't have to replace these parts, because I can tell you for sure, these are going to wear out. So, let's talk maintenance cost over the life of it. There's a couple things that are going to wear out on both items. Let's be honest here. Okay, this one again has the supports for it. This electric dryer does not. This has a bearing system. It's not going to last as long. But as you look at the electric dryer and you look inside of it, you're going to say there's not much to this compared to our gas dryer over here. This gas dryer has quite a few more components than this electric dryer does right here. Is your failure rate going to be a little bit higher with this because it's got more components? Well, I don't know. If I've got 100 pieces of something put together and 25 pieces put together, which one's going to have the greatest possibility of failure? It's going to be the one that has the most components, because the more things can fail. So is it advantageous to have one over the other? Well, yes. I think gas is more efficient. I think gas is a better product. But they're trying to take gas dryers away from us because they're not environmentally friendly. Well, these are very efficient and they work well. And gas dryers don't wear out generally. There are more components that can fail, but does that mean that this one with fewer components is better than this one? Not necessarily. I think this is much more efficient than the electric dryer is. But will they both serve your purposes? Yeah, absolutely. There's always that, there's less components or less this, they're cheaper parts, and the parts don't last as long. There's cheaper parts in this one than there is this one. In my opinion, that blower wheel and this blower wheel here, that motor and this motor here, they're exactly the same. The idler pulleys are a little bit different on each one, but they're just a wheel that supports it. You know, where your quality comes in is your supports and your other things that make it better. Without the better components such as your idlers and stuff that help the machine run longer, easier, the more it's going to be gentler on the components. You know, if we're running that and we're dragging this drum around this thing, and we're not dragging it, it's not like we're, you know, creating a ton of friction, but if you're dragging something, of course it's going to put more effort on this motor than it is this motor over here, because this is using rollers. So what I'm trying to say is the quality comes in the engineering of the product. They don't want this to fail. I mean, they want you, the consumer, to be happy with this product and make sure that it's not going to fail. If it does fail, then it looks bad upon them. So they're not going to put cheap components in and do that, but they'll also have to market it to price point for what you are willing to pay for. If you're willing to pay more for it, yes, they'll put the nicer things in it. If you can't afford it and you need something that just works, this is right in that price range. So it's the quality is in the engineering. The parts, they're pretty much the same. But now you can see the insides of these and you know what these look like, and you know that the components are similar to each other. When you go in and you talk to your salesperson, you talk to them and you know what you want. You want stuff with rollers because they hold more weight, they're gonna last longer. You want the gas dryer, you want the electric dryer because of these features, and they've got, you know, again, you're armed with the right information for yourself to help you make the best decision, what's best for you, and how long you want it to last for yourself. So I hope you find this video entertaining. I hope this has been informative. And if you have any comments or questions, please put it below.